Turkey's currency crisis rages on as lira sinks again. Turkey's currency dropped again Monday as the country wrestled with a crisis that has rattled markets around the world. The Turkish lira plunged as much as 11% against the dollar after markets opened in Asia before recovering some of its losses in volatile trading.
Watching the foreign exchange rate has become something of a national sport in Turkey. The Turkish lira has been losing value over the last 6 months, but this past week it has taken a sharp tumble. Now, Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan says that his government has all the tools necessary in order to combat the Turkish lira losing value. But ordinary Turks on the street are feeling the squeeze. We spoke to some of them to see how they feel about the economy.
My mother exchanged her dollars too soon yesterday, and she ended up losing a lot of money. It upset her. And generally, I can see the prices are going up, and that impacts us negatively.
How can you fix it? Do they have a magic wand? Our income is obvious. It keeps going down while the debt keeps going up. We are like the guy who spends from his credit card and then ends up losing his house.
I haven't paid my rent in 2 months. It's been 2 months. There is a big crisis. We can't get our money. There are difficulties.
Since I don't have any money, it doesn't affect me. Let the rich think about it.
This will really blow up after the elections, the situation with the markets. Let's see how far people can tighten their belts.
Turks are going to the polls in about a month, and the economy is expected to play a big role in those elections. Now, Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has always used the economy as an example of one of his shining accomplishments. But come this election season, it may just end up being his soft spot. Gültüsüz, CNN, Istanbul.
The lira had already plummeted more than 20% last week as a political clash with the United States intensified and investors fretted about the Turkish government's lack of action to tackle the problems plaguing its economy. The lira's tailspin has unsettled global markets, with shares of European banks coming under particular pressure because of concerns over the lenders' exposure to Turkey. The jitters have also hit currencies of other emerging markets, such as South African and India. On Monday, stocks fell 2% in Tokyo and more than 1% in Hong Kong. Major European markets were down around 0.5%, with shares in banks including Spain's BBVA and Italy's Unicredit, sliding more than 2%. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has dismissed calls for the country to raise interest rates to try to ease the crisis and has lashed out at the United States. "We will not give in," Erdogan said in a speech Sunday. "If you come at us with your dollars, then we will find other ways to do business." Economists are warning that if confidence isn't restored quickly, Turkey could lurch into a recession and debt crisis requiring a bailout from the International Monetary Fund. Investors are clearly concerned that Turkey's government won't act, or allow the central bank to act, to shore up the currency, and fears are mounting that this could result in a crisis in Turkey's banking sector. William Jackson, chief emerging markets economist at research firm Capital Economics, wrote in a note to clients Friday. The lira is now down more than 40% against the dollar since the start of the year, making it far harder for Turkish companies to pay back loans they have taken out in the U.S. currency. Meanwhile, the U.S. government is using the lira crisis to ramp up pressure on Turkey over its detention of an American pastor. "I have just authorized a doubling of tariffs on steel and aluminum with respect to Turkey as their currency. The Turkish lira slides rapidly downward against our very strong dollar." President Donald Trump tweeted Friday. "Our relations with Turkey are not good at this time." The Turkish government has so far struggled to soothe investors' concerns. Finance Minister Berat Albayrak said in a series of tweets late Sunday that the government had started introducing an economic action plan of necessary measures to address the situation. Albayrak, who is Erdogan's son-in-law, didn't provide much in the way of details. The central bank then announced in a statement early Monday that it would take all necessary measures to maintain financial stability and provide all the liquidity the banks need. It also said it would slash the amount of funds that banks are required to hold in reserve. The Turkish currency erased some of its earlier losses, but the announcements weren't enough to trigger a rally. The lira was down around 7% against the dollar in afternoon trading in Asia. Investors are waiting for a convincing response from the central bank and government, Rob Carnell, an economist at investment banking, said in a note to clients Monday. $1 now buys a little under 7 lira, compared with fewer than 4 at the start of the year. Investors have flocked to the United States in recent months, drawn by rising bond yields and a stronger dollar as the Federal Reserve continues to gradually increase interest rates. The trend has set off turmoil in emerging markets. Argentina was forced in June to ask the International Monetary Fund for a $50 billion bailout. Turkey's plight has raised fears of more casualties. The South African rand plummeted as much as 8% against the dollar early Monday before recovering to trade down more than 2%. India's rupee lost around 1% against the dollar, touching a record low. But some market analysts are advising investors against abandoning emerging markets in general as a result of the turbulence in Turkey. The drivers of the lira's decline are very specific to Turkey, Kerry Craig, a global market strategist at JP Morgan Asset Management, said in a note to clients. Therefore, it should not derail the positive fundamentals in other emerging markets over a longer term.